The Dead Pixel Society podcast is brought to you by Media Clip, Advertech Printing, and Independent Photo Imagers. Welcome to the Dead Pixel Society podcast, the photo imaging industry's leading news source. Here's your host, Gary Pageau.
Hello again and welcome to the Dead Pixel Society podcast. I'm your host, Gary Pageau, and today we're joined by one of the OG Dead Pixel Society people, Andrew Laffoon, who is the CEO and co-founder of Mixbook, which is celebrating its 20th anniversary this year and rolling out some crazy AI goodness. Hi, Andrew. How are you today?
Doing well, Gary. Great to be back on with you.
So how was that for an introduction? We got a lot of ground to cover because you guys have been around. We're going to talk about your anniversary in a little bit, but you're not sitting still. So for those 12 people who aren't unaware of your kind of the journey of Mixbook, how is it that you got into the business all those many moons ago?
Yeah, I met my co-founder in college at UC Berkeley. We were both engineering undergrads, and we were always brainstorming ideas. And the joke is, one day we were scrapbooking together, which of course is not really the real story. The real story is we actually got inspired at Berkeley to democratize all the things, right? The idea, Berkeley is very big on how do we bring the power of the few to the masses. And for us, we were captivated by this idea of democratizing storytelling. We initially applied it in the yearbook space because in yearbooks, you've got 20 people making a yearbook for 2,000. Right. But most people's stories aren't really in there. Right. So wouldn't it be great if the team, the group of friends, the activity club could actually add their own content or even make their own yearbook? That's how it started. Yeah. And because really, if you kind of zoom out, big picture, our culture has moved more and more towards the people who get to tell their stories are the few and they're the high and mighty, right? Right. But our stories don't really get told and don't really get paid attention to. And so that was really the idea. And we found out about this whole space of photo books when I made a gift as a going away present for some close friends. And the gift giving experience was amazing. They cried. They said it was the best gift they ever received. But the experience of creating it, not good. Yeah. So we pretty quickly pivoted from yearbooks to photo books because we thought this is the storytelling medium of this decade. It's replacing photo albums, bringing it into a really great classic storytelling format. So in your model, what is a story? Good question. So yes, you're right. Story is a broad term. And to kind of go back into it for a minute, like I grew up with a dad who loved to tell stories. He would tell us, we would go on our family vacation at the beach and he would tell us these elaborate 3, 4, 5 night stories involving my siblings as like hero characters and so on. And so like the idea of stories was always captivating to me. But then on the other side of the equation, you've got the your aunt's carousel of her trip that nobody wants to watch. Right. And so my question is, actually, there's a lot of interesting things that happen in our life, but telling a good story is actually hard. And that's why I asked the question, because, as a society, we're really pivoted a lot towards entertainment and all these things, of storytelling, right? It's sort of like where everything's going. Yep. And, telling stories. And most people, when they see a movie or something, can identify that was good or that wasn't, but that doesn't mean they can actually do it. That's right. Which is why people who are really good at short form video have that down, right? Because they know that visual language of that sort of thing, but not everyone can do it. And it's one of those things where that's why I wanted to ask the question that way, because, in the Mixbook world, what constitutes a successful story that it makes a customer happy, right? So I think there's a lot of details in that. But in short, the story for me, a story has a couple components. There's someone who's telling the story, and there's someone who's receiving the story, listening to the story, experiencing the story. And so I think about for us as what is a story, if you kind of zoom out for a second and say, well, what is a photo book, right? A photo book can be a lot of things. And that, in fact, part of the reason why we became successful in the industry is because we allowed you to tell, we gave you such a broad suite of storytelling tools that you could tell any story. Previously, it was like, okay, if you have a set of photos that's linear, you can drop that in the slots and now you have your book. And congratulations, you have a photo album that is another new version of a photo album, right? It's not really that unique. What made photo albums from my childhood special was adding the narrative, right? Adding captions, adding color. It's also really important what you exclude from the story. In other words, like great stories exclude far more than they include.
The whole editing function, right? Editing is taking things out.
You got it. Exactly. And so a lot of the work for us is what is a good story is a story that reflects your own experience, a story that has some drama, like it's got the ups and downs. If you don't have the part about how you missed the flight, you probably are missing the essence of what made that story interesting. What are the things the kids are going to remember forever? What are the things that your kids make fun of you for? That's what makes the story interesting. That's what makes it relatable. And so to me, it's like, if you level up what these books are trying to be, it's like almost the family mythos. Like, what are the myths of larger than life stories? Bring your kids one day back together that they're telling their kids and grandkids. Right? That's like what you're trying to create.
So one of the challenges when photo books really started coming on the scene, about the time Mixbook was created, in the mid 2000s, was, when we were doing PMA research at the time, it was, what was the drop rate back then? It was like 75% weren't finished. And the number one reason was people didn't have the right photos. They didn't feel they could tell a good story. Has that changed since then? Is the completion rate still, is the completion rate getting better?
Yeah, so good question. I would say the completion rate has definitely improved a lot. And the problem has shifted, although it's quite similar. In that era, 2004, right, 2005, you had digital cameras was still relatively new. Smartphone cameras didn't exist yet. So the problem has really changed where it was back then. It was like, did I miss capturing that scene that really told the story? Now the problem is I have so many photos. I'm just completely overwhelmed. Like, I don't know where to begin. And if you talk to our customers, the ones who make a lot of books, they're meticulously organized. They've got all their folders on their desktop. Everything is organized. They have it curated before they ever come to us. But for 90% of people, me included, I'm just not going to be that organized. It's just, I have too many photos. I've got 150,000 photos. So what do I do?
And that's actually one of the inhibitors, right?
You got it.
I've got, the trip to Ireland for my daughter's wedding that's coming up. I'm sure there's going to be several thousand pictures to choose from between the ones I take and my family takes. And creating that ultimate book is going to be a challenge. But I've heard perhaps that Mixbook has a solution for that.
We do indeed. And I will say we've been pretty much working for at least the last 10 years on making choosing the right photos easier, on helping to choose the photos for you. And choosing isn't just what's the best photos in the abstract from this set. What you're actually trying to do, which nobody in the industry does today, is have an overarching narrative you're trying to tell about that trip, and picking the photos. You're going to be excluding entire scenes for a good story. You're going to be excluding a lot. You're going to be excluding way more than you include. Can you choose a set of photos and a set of scenes or a set of chapters that actually weaves together a coherent narrative that's based on what the story you want to tell as a customer? And so we've just recently launched our first major foray into what I would call true storytelling for photo books. It's called Story Mode. Just launched actually less than a month ago. And it is right now on our iOS app. And by the time you hear this podcast, it'll probably be available on our website as well. You start with a prompt. It's completely different than any other photo book service. It's akin to what you'd find in ChatGPT or Gemini or Claude, where you actually say, I want to create a book about my daughter's wedding in Ireland. And then they'll start to interview you. Who was there with you? What is the story you want to tell about that? Like you might say, this was very expensive. That's the story I want to tell, right? Or I'm just kidding. You could say whatever you want, right? And it'll weave all that into the narrative of the book. And it will actually help you to choose which photos are going to be included, which order are they going to be, how is it getting laid out? And in fact, you don't really have to do much of anything. You can just give it a couple prompts, and then it lays out the whole thing for you. And then you can edit it to your heart's content.
So when you talk about like the AI piece of that, is that stuff you've nurtured over a decade? Because it seems like some of the stuff I'm seeing, because I get pitches all the time for people who have, I've got this editing thing, I've got this editing thing, I've done this. And a lot of it is just, it's definitely stuff that is not unique. But
Right.
you have 20 years of secret sauce to look at of how people are not only what pictures they have, but how they're doing it.
Yes, we have a massive, massive amount of experience and data to draw from. And I think for us, there's a whole long conversation on behind the scenes. I will say straightforwardly, without the more recent breakthroughs in generative AI, what we're doing today would not be possible. And so, the thing that honestly blew me away with this tech, because we knew, all right, I think I know how to do it. We've done a lot of research on story. We hired a team out of Hollywood who, like, Emmy Award winning script writers, screenwriters, people just to train us and understand how to identify a good story. Because guess what? Most of our photo books made by our customers are not compelling stories if you weren't there.
Yeah.
You just have no
Yeah, because I mean, like you said, there's two people that are probably interested, right? The person receiving it and the person who made it, right?
That's
Everyone
right.
else probably not interested.
And so for us, it's like, how do we help our customers tell a good story and actually make the storytelling process fun? The reminiscing process is already fun.
Yeah.
And what blew me away actually is once we actually set up the system to be able to understand the story behind the story, to interview the customer and get the customer's intent,
Right.
and we trained it on all the right data, it can now write a coherent narrative weaving throughout the whole book in
Right.
multiple sentences on a spread, and it nails it. It
Right.
nails things, and it does it in a way, I want to call it poetically.
Mhm.
It uses a kind of language that I could never write on my own. And I
Okay.
spent a good amount of time writing.
Right.
And so, that to me is what generative AI unlocks. It's
Right.
one thing to be able to say, I have this perfect book in mind. Can I do it? Right.
Right.
And that's, I think, how the industry has been thinking.
Right.
And at this point, we're wiping that away. It's
Right.
really reinventing. Don't imagine that you start with a perfect book.
Right.
We're helping you create something you could have never made on your own.
Yeah.
And that is different.
So talk to me a little bit about the text portion of that, the captioning portion, maybe the paragraph portion that maybe accompanies a picture. That's been kind of a fail from a lot of other platforms that I've seen,
You're
where
right.
it's either too generic or just creepy or weird or even just a terrible voice, right? So how did you nail that piece?
A lot of work. And if you used our early AI caption stuff a couple of years ago,
Mhm.
it was pretty cheesy. My kids still make fun of it. There was like this, I still remember one of the iconic captions that they always quote is "Fall's crunchy embrace." There was some photo of like a bunch of fall photo shoot stuff. And, it was a bit ham-fisted. It was a bit awkward at the beginning. And I will say the technology has progressed a lot.
Sure.
And getting it to work right is extremely difficult. So we've had a long-running R&D effort. I mean, we've been working on AI since inception for 20 years. But, that internal R&D team that's building our own models and commercializing models and working with the big labs, that team has it's just been an enormous amount of effort to get it right. And I think the trick with AI is it's always the age-old adage, right? The last 5% is 95% of the work.
Well, it's the last mile, right? It is for everything, right? It's always getting that last bit is always the challenge.
That's the hard part. And I think our culture is a craftsmanship culture. We're really in pursuit of perfection, even though there is no actual perfection in the world. We want it better. And so that's right. I think that's what it takes. It takes a real commitment.
So have you gotten any feedback from customers, early users, where they were like, this is almost creepy in the sense where it was almost too good and it kind of bothered them?
Actually, no.
Okay.
So, and interestingly, because the customer is prompting it and it's using their voice, it makes it feel like you wrote it.
Okay.
If you think about that, you as the photographer, you're actually telling a story in what you choose to capture. So I actually take photos very differently than a lot of other people because I make so many books.
Right.
So I'll take pictures of kind of the B-roll.
Yeah. That's
right?
what I always tell people. If you're going to a restaurant, you get a picture of the sign of the restaurant, take a picture of the menu, you get the B-roll piece, right?
Right. Like if all you have is selfies, your book is just not going to be good.
Yeah.
It will be fine. And we do get a fair share of selfie books,
Yeah.
but like you're trying to tell a story, right? So even as a photographer, the photos you take are
Right.
telling a story. It's telling a story of your perspective. And when you have
Right.
multiple photographers, so much the more, right?
Right.
You've got this story that's being told. That plus your kind of overarching narrative actually enables us to really tell a story, right? A photograph is 1,000 words, right?
Right.
We're only going to show 20 words.
Right.
And those 20 can be really poignant.
So when you talk about combining viewpoints in a book, like when you have multiple contributors, how easy is that in something? Or can you do a version of a story mode book where it's like, this is dad's version, this is mom's version, this is the bride's version, this is whatever? I mean, how are you spinning that?
Yes, I expect that most of it will be versions. So especially for your daughter's wedding, right? I'm pretty sure she'll have her own version of the wedding book. Thank you very much, Dad, but I'm going to make mine too.
Yeah.
So, for example, last summer we did a backpacking trip with a bunch of other dads and our sons. And I made my own version of that, and I don't include all the photos that the other guys took, but there was a bunch of photos they took, like all the photos where I'm included with my son, I don't take.
Right.
Exactly.
Story. Yeah. Because you want to be in that book, right?
Yeah.
In a picture other than a selfie.
You got it. And their version will be different, right? Like they don't need the stuff we did before the trip and after the trip in their book. But my book will include that. Right. And so there's a lot there of pooling photos and choosing photos and all that.
So walk me through that process, though. I mean, how do you create in the mixed book environment that sort of group work thing? Is there an event feature where everyone can contribute to an event? How does that even work?
So today, collaboration means you need to start the project first.
Right.
And so it's really well suited for stuff like, oh, it's our friend's 50th birthday. Everyone go in and make a page. It's like perfectly suited for that. It's perfectly suited for group trips. Story mode so far doesn't have a way of collecting photos for you yet. It's to come. And you can get the photos beforehand using iCloud or Google Photos, whatever it is, which is what I've been using.
Yes.
So we have a lot there, is what I would say. But right now,
I mean, that's the part where I think the whole photo book process needs enhancement, is reducing the friction points.
Yeah. 100%. So, and I think the biggest friction is choosing the photos. The second biggest friction is, how the heck do I turn this into a story? And the third biggest friction is all the tweaks. If you care about the tweaks, of the design, what design am I using? Right. All the little choices.
Yeah.
So I think with story mode, our initial thought was this is for those kind of in between occasions, but not as big. Turns out, no, it works perfectly well for a wedding, and it's amazing what it can do. So because it can automate so many of the hard choices and you just give a couple inputs, again, you have to try it to see it. But even the way it then goes and recommends to you designs, right? You're still doing a design. Most of these AI algorithm companies, you're getting one photo per page and you're getting a background color and you're not getting text. It's so simplistic and it just doesn't work.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like, for example, if you go into like Amazon Photos or Google Photos, they're always trying to suggest things. And like you said, it's very, very date driven. There's really no context. Yeah. It's like, you were here on this date. Want to buy a photo book? Yep. I mean, I'm sure there's people who buy them because they're still doing it.
There are.
But to me, it's not, doesn't, and hey, I would rather have people buy those than buy nothing. Right. I mean, I'm glad that option's out there, but you're kind of trying to reach a different level of user. Have you got a profile on who the typical Mixbook customer is? And do you think you're going to be able to gain some of those people who may not have been hardcore Mixbookers in the past?
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Photo retailers, energize your sales with ShareMe Chat, the proven texting platform. Using chat to text on your website keeps your customers connected and buying. See us at Pro and IPI to find out why dealers using ShareMe Chat close more sales without adding staff. Find out more at shareme.chat.
Yeah, our customer demographic is really, it's the chief memory officer in the home, right? It tends to be the mom.
Yeah.
And it starts younger. So because of our background, the audience does start younger. It starts with people getting married, starts with people just out of college, people going on trips, a lot of travelers. But it's kind of a youngish millennial right now. And it goes to, I will say with story mode, the aim has been, how do I get those people who don't, art people tend to be the ones who like putting the time in on the design. They like organizing their photos. They like telling the stories, and they're trying to bring people together in some way.
Yeah.
There's a lot more people who also want to get their story out there, but don't like the process of creating all the details.
Yeah, that's always been sort of the tension in the industry, right? Is how much do I help? You know, there's the easy autofill mode people who are really advocates for that. There's, like, I know several of the vendors who have some of the sites where, hey, you know what, mom doesn't have time for this stuff. We need to make autofill and make it easy so she can do this stuff. Then there's the whole other dimension, which is the blurb or the CV photo book people. It's like, no, we want the people who are going to sit there and craft this thing, and they're going to choose the fonts and all that. And I think there's room for obviously both marketplaces, but I think there's a bigger room for people who aren't in those worlds.
Yeah, and again, because we've grown up in that world, we got our product market fit with scrapbookers, right?
Yeah,
that's what Mixbook was known for. Because we've grown up in that world, we know how that works,
right?
And we can actually bring to bear how to make a book that is to that level of visual perfection and that level of storytelling perfection. And so that's, I think, where what we're trying to do is empower every person to be able to do that. And you're at the center. Philosophically, for us, one of the big things is not getting into a world where we're actually writing we're the author of your story. We define what you took away from the vacation. That would be bad. Right. That's not an appropriate place for us to be.
We're the publisher, not the author.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Where it gets blurry is we're starting to write text. So what does that mean? We're doing layout. What does that mean? We're choosing photos, what to include, what to exclude. And so we're more than the publisher. We're like a superpowered tool for the author, but they're still the author.
So this has been in the marketplace for a while. You've done some PR, you've done some rollout, obviously you've done a ton of testing, and I'm sure it's all wildly positive, but you know, how do you get greater awareness of Mixbook and even just photo books in general? Because I think as an industry, we've been struggling telling that story, because when people talk about imaging these days, they're usually talking TikTok or Instagram Reels or stuff like that, which has its place, but it's not the memory market that we all think is more important.
Yeah. If I knew that question, the answer to that question, we would be a lot bigger than we are. I would say for me, so much when you look at the next generation, their desire to print is huge.
Yeah.
And
oh yeah, absolutely.
Point, they're not aware in many cases of photo books, or when they've seen it, it's perceived as, oh, that's my mom's kind of product. Yeah. So to me, actually, our edge has always been tech innovation, right? It's what can we do to empower, aimed at this next generation of creators, because they think differently.
Yeah,
they didn't grow up with scrapbooking. They did not grow up with photo albums. They grew up with books, right? They grew up with books on the shelf. Photo books, maybe, right? And I think that's the thing, right? If you make something that makes people say, wow, and get you to grow. And of course, there's a lot of marketing that comes with that, right? I mean,
it's just one of those challenges that as an industry, we've yet to overcome, in the sense that, you know, we're all passionate about printing, right? For obvious reasons. And it's one of those things where it's one of the only consumer products that the user has to do something, has to ingest their own content into it to make it happen. And it's a tangible product. You don't get the value of a print without actually holding it, or a book or whatever, without flipping the pages. Then you kind of have that experience. And yeah, I used to love it when Target had those end caps with Shutterfly books on them, because people were at least seeing that and flipping the books, and Costco and all that. And there's, you know, and I'm not saying you're going to have to do that, but that's really been a missing link in the industry, is getting that retail experience to the masses. I mean, yes, there's independent photo stores and people like that who have books. I mean, obviously it's out there, but it's an industry challenge, I think, like I said, to engage those new users who love to print, right? They're shooting Polaroids, they're making prints and Instax, and they're shooting film, for God's sake. It's definitely, the market's there.
Yeah, you're right. Both my girls have Instax and love it.
Yeah.
Take photos and print them with their friends. Of course, they're growing up in my family, so they're pretty exposed to printing.
But still, I mean, just in general, I mean, it's a big piece of that business, and it just, I don't know. I mean, like I said, it's one of those things where, it's such a great opportunity for everybody to
100%.
to blue sky, and it just seems like, whether it's the mood in the country or technology or whatever. It doesn't seem like there's a lot of juice to drive this forward. And I'm glad you're seeing a lot of organic growth. I just would love to see, hey, listen, I don't even know if they watched the Today Show, but like Today Show used to have these morning, hey, these latest in photo products kind of things and all that kind of stuff.
Right. And I think the world has changed a lot. So the way you reach consumers is so different. It's much more influencer driven. It's TikTok. Obviously, those are the areas where we are. Yeah. Right. It's the digitally native marketing channels. And I think that's where we need to be. And so I think the world of, you can do one, besides the Super Bowl, there's not one place to reach everyone.
Yeah. It's just a different piece. And I think you guys are clearly on the leading edge of a lot of that, because you're a smart company doing a lot of things. It's going to take more than you to do that.
100%.
Yeah.
Are you pitching the new PMA from Dead Pixel Society?
No, not at all. I'm just like, as I like to look at it from an industry standpoint, with your experience, you've kind of seen a lot of the good things that can happen, and also some of the opportunities that are there. I just think that, you guys have really emerged, I think, as a leader in that category, because not only you've been in the business for so long, but you're also constantly innovating and being fresh.
100%. That's the name of the game.
So if people wanted to experience the Mixbook story mode themselves, how would they do that?
So right now it's live in our app. So if you go to the App Store on your iPhone, not Android yet, you can look up Mixbook, Mixbook, download the app. It'll be right there, front and center. And as well on our website, mixbook.com. It'll be live by the time you hear this on our website, on mobile devices, on desktop. I will say the app is the best place to experience it. Once you've generated your book, because it has access to your photos, it's just way better. And you can still edit it on the desktop, see it on the big screen before you.
Can you start on the book and continue on the desktop? Can you do that?
And that's a very common thing for our customers, right? Because you want to see it on the big screen. You want to show it to your wife and say, hey, are you happy with this? Before I press the button, right?
Awesome. Well, great, Andrew. It's been wonderful seeing you again. Best wishes on the launch, and hopefully a great Q4 is ahead of you.
Absolutely. Should be a big one. Thanks, Gary.
Thank you for listening to the Dead Pixel Society podcast. Read more great stories and sign up for the newsletter at www.thedeadpixelssociety.com.